Welcome to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary Emineth. Today we're going to be talking to Luke Armstrong, who's spent a lot of his life down in Guatemala. As we've done some shows on the God's Child Project, and we're going to do some more of that probably this week or early next week. But we're so thrilled about people who give so much of their time to help other people and part of their life. And I just really felt that Luke's been on other shows here on Beck, and I got the opportunity to interview him, so I'm excited to have him on the show. So Luke, welcome to Open Range.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
So Luke, before we get started, I know you've done some other shows on Beck, but not all my viewers are other viewers. And so for those that don't know who you are, tell our viewers, who's Luke Armstrong?
I'm Patty and Mark's son, and a lot of people know who they are. So Mark Armstrong spent many years on the airwaves here, and then my mom has the show Ladies of Another View here on Beck.
And Luke, you grew up in Bismarck?
Yep, proudly raised in North Dakota.
And so you grew up here, and where you got that great shirt on. It looks like a Guatemalan shirt, but maybe not. I should have probably, I got some wild shirts, but mine would look more like beach shirts a little bit, maybe like Derek Boulevard, CEO here at Beck, would have on, but not a cool one like that.
You got to go to Seeds of Hope. That's where I got this in Bismarck.
That's fantastic. My life loves Seeds of Hope. It's probably going to be there this afternoon.
One of the best thrift stores in the state.
It's phenomenal. Tell us a little bit more growing up. Before you ended up in Guatemala, tell us a little bit about yourself before that.
Yeah, so I attended NDSU before they were D1s, so I got to see the last Bison playing in the lower divisions. And then I spent my last semester in Chile. And I didn't know it was going to be my last semester when I went down there. So at the end of it, I was graduated. And instead of going to the graduation ceremony, I decided to do the most financially irresponsible thing I could think of. I took out an alternative student loan, and I decided I was going to travel overland north. So it took me about 6 months. I would volunteer and write along the way. So I've always had the writer in me, and I naively thought, I would just start making a living as a writer by the time I made it. But I stopped off in Guatemala to volunteer. I thought for maybe a couple weeks, a couple months at the God's Child Project. And Pat, the founder of the God's Child Project, gave me an opportunity, which I stayed there for 4 years. And then I met Mick and Deborah through that work, who started the Integral Heart Family.
Wow. And so how long ago was that you got involved with the Integral Heart Family?
That was half my lifetime ago, so 18 years ago.
18 years ago. So how many years have you spent in Guatemala?
So 18 years I've been in Guatemala, and then for 14 years I've been with the Integral Heart Family.
Wow. We're going to dig into that project in more detail and how people can support it. But just the whole idea of giving your life and traveling. And I've been to Mexico, but I'm nervous of going further south of the border because it feels like hostile territory to me. It feels like I'm going to get kidnapped or killed. Is that kind of just a North Dakota or an American paranoia?
Yeah, I think so. Guatemala is I've been to all the Central American countries. So I can tell you the Guatemalans are warm, they're friendly, they're always smiling. Even the ones in difficult situations seem to have an inner joy. So if you ever wanted to, you could fly to Guatemala City. We'd have a driver pick you up. You could be on my doorstep in 2 hours, and you'd be very welcome anytime you want to come down.
So let's talk a little bit about Central America. You've been in all the countries. Give us a little, for viewers out there that have not, including myself. I can hardly tell on a map where it's at. And because some of these Americans, we're just idiots. I've been to Europe tour quite a bit, and so I'm familiar more with Europe. But the South has intrigued me, but I just...
Yeah, so you drive past South Dakota, you keep going past Texas, you go through Mexico.
You go all the way through. Of course, once you hit the Mexican border, it's still a long drive, isn't it?
It's a long drive, but I've known people that have done it in 3 days, so you can really...
Serious?
You can get there pretty quickly. I have a lot of friends that have done motorcycle tours from Alaska to Patagonia. So it's the largest Central American country. It has some of the most diverse climates. So you have desert, you have coastline, you have highlands, you have plains. It's very rich in diversity. It's a breadbasket. There's great abundance for agriculture. A lot of coffee that ends up in your Starbucks cup comes from Guatemala.
Yeah, I love Guatemalan coffee. Is it as good down there as what we have up here? Do they roast it the same way? Do you know, or can you tell the difference?
I can tell the difference. So I grow my own coffee as well. I produce about 80 pounds a year. I'm out this year, but next time I come up, I'll bring you a bag of my coffee.
Wow, fantastic. So talk to us a little bit about that. So do you pick them and then roast them for the whole year, or do they only grow because of the seasonality? Does it grow multiple times a year?
So there's 3 harvests over 2 months. So the coffee harvest kind of starts now in December, and then it will go through March. Now, one issue with coffee is it ends up occupying the land 12 months out of the year, but you only have a cash harvest 2 months out of the year. So people that are dedicated to coffee have these boom and bust cycles, which keeps them in poverty often because we live in a consumer economy. So we need a middle class for a strong economy. Guatemala is based on a labor economy. So if they can pay low wages, they can sell things for a higher price here in the United States or in Europe or things like that. So you get a lot of the people with power, the people with money, not advocating for workers, because if the workers' wages go up, their bottom lines go down.
So if you take, I'm going to stay with coffee. Let's say you said a lot there that I want to talk about further, but I'm a coffee nut. I like light roast, medium roast, dark roast. I don't want to attack Starbucks, but God bless them for doing what they did, because I went from these rural North Dakota towns that had bad water and made bad coffee, and it was horrible. And I used to think when Perkins had the best coffee ever, because I think they had good water. But in the end, Starbucks has educated us all on at least thinking about a good cup of coffee, a good roast. And so talk to me a little bit about, do you roast your own beans? And because there's a light, like Ethiopia or Costa Rica, they tend to be a light roast and it's a little fruit forward, is how I do it. What is Guatemalan? How would you speak to that?
Yeah, we have a lot of Arabica coffee. I toast my harvest on a medium roast, and there's different ways to do it. So there is what's called the wash method. That's when you take the fruit off, you wash it, and then you dry it. There's another method called the honey processing of coffee. That's when you leave it in the fruit for a couple days or up to a week, you let it dry, and then you take the fruit off and then you dry the seed, and that will have a much more kind of fruity aroma, like with undertones of fruit. So there's different climates, there's different elevations where they grow, there's different water, different soils, that affects the flavor, but then there's the post-processing after the harvest. And this time of year where I live in a small village, up in the highlands, you'll just see people carrying like 80-pound sacks of coffee on their backs. They're very strong. They built the pyramids in Guatemala. And then they end up often in my village, there's a guy with a truck on the side of the road, and he weighs the coffee and then he pays them for it on the spot. Now, the problem here is if they had the means of production, if they have the means of roasting, they would be able to then resell that coffee for 10 to 20 times more than just the coffee harvest. So there are like local collectives and cooperatives where people in the village have come together in different villages in order to get the means of production, where then they can sell it competitively in the international coffee trade.
Interesting. How, when it comes to coffee trees in Guatemala, because it is such an important coffee commodity in the U.S., you don't go to any coffee shop that won't have identified a Guatemalan blend of some sort.
Yeah.
How about part of the industry, of the economy, if you will, agricultural economy, is coffee in Guatemala, would you say?
I don't know the percentile, but we're talking bananas, sugar canes, and coffee as being the primary agriculture exports of Guatemala. So I would guess it's at least in the top 3 of those things.
I see. Bananas, sugar cane,
and coffee.
And coffee would be in it. So you have 80 pounds, you tend to roast yourself and you're out. And so let's pivot a little bit. Got a break coming up in a couple minutes, but having spent 18 years in Guatemala, what does that life look like for you on a daily basis? And I don't mean your work, just what does it look like living in Guatemala? As a North Dakota citizen, that would be foreign to me.
It's not as cold, that's for sure. It's called the land of eternal spring, so it's about 50 to 70 degrees all year round where I live. It's a slower life. You expect people are going to show up late to your meetings, and then you show up late to your next meetings. So the pace is just much more relaxed. Often, Guatemalans that are planning to illegally immigrate north will often talk to me because they hear I'm an American, and I tell them this. I say, look, most of the people in the United States want what you already have. They want more time with their family. They want less time having to work, and they want more time outdoors. You can make those decisions if you want to, I tell them, but you already have achieved a certain element of the American dream, because we can get caught just running towards what? Like retirement, towards something that we never actually reach. So I would say what we can really learn from the Guatemalans is to enjoy every day of our life, every moment. I found that the people with the least can sometimes enjoy the smallest things the most.
That's fascinating, because that is so true about the American culture, because we get on this treadmill, we're like a bunch of hamsters running 100 miles an hour. And do you feel that the Guatemalans you mentioned are generally happy people then?
Yeah, I would say they have a deeply embedded joy. That's something in working with the poor was very comforting to me, because before I was actually in the fields, you see these pictures of destitution. And then when I actually met the poor people, met slaves living in garbage dumps, forced people to, children working in coffee fields, it was comforting to know that their smile is real, that their laughter is real, that those with money and means do not have a monopoly on happiness. That is available to every one of us if we tune into what makes us happy and what gives us meaning.
That's fascinating. We got some slides and pictures that I want to have you talk to. We're going to go to the break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at it a little bit further, because just the whole culture of what Americans have offered the world is so great, but there's so much of what we offer isn't so great. And I think it's important to hear what some people like you have to say that experience it differently. So Luke, spending 18 years in Guatemala talking coffee, we did find out during the break that coffee's 40% of the export revenue related to Guatemala's revenue. Obviously, they export a lot, but what do they grow as far as, how do people on a daily basis live? What do they do to survive? Where we go to jobs that pay us and would hopefully puts money in our retirement fund, and also maybe pays for some of our insurance, which we have decent health care, even though people complain all the time about it. Talk to us about, how does the average Guatemalan survive? Obviously, there's city folks, and you're in a small village. Talk to us a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah, so there are like the Guatemala city Guatemalans. They would have maybe very similar jobs to us, like accounting, big companies, big grocery stores. But then the people in the coffee industry are often subsistence farmers, so corn for their tortillas and their tamales. Families that have the corn plot would never sell that. That would be like the biggest sin they could commit, because that's where they are getting their subsistence from. So many of them work in fields, and they grow squash, beans, corn. These are called the three sisters. So they grow them in a symbiotic relationship around when the corn's done growing, beans grow around it, and then squash covers the ground cover. And so these three plants actually have worked for a millennium together to provide the primary staples of the Guatemalan diet.
You know, I'm a big gardener. I never thought about it. I can really expand my garden.
Well, check this out. I brought you some Guatemalan peppers. The red ones are very spicy.
Wow.
And they have seeds in them. So you can try these heirloom species of Mayan peppers next year.
So these are Mayan. So I could save those seeds.
Save the seeds, plant them in your garden this spring.
And there's three different kinds of...
There's two. So these are both very spicy habanero peppers.
Habanero.
And this is called the Mayan Guatemalan, or the Mayan banana pepper.
The Mayan banana pepper. I thank you. This is fabulous, because...
I was hoping you were a gardener.
I'm a big gardener. I have a massive gardener.
Oh, wonderful.
And I like chili. So I'm a New Mexican chili expert, if you will.
Great.
I have a chili restaurant. I work with a burrito company called Green Chili Food Company.
You're the right guy for that.
And I actually had a restaurant that I lost a lot of money on, and that was open 4 months in Grand Forks, called the Padron Chili.
Okay.
And Padron is a pepper from Spain. It's like a shishito. And so many times I love shishitos because they're about 1 in 10 are hot. They're about maybe the smaller than the jalapeno. They tend to be wrinkled. And so the Padron is a sister or brother of that. Shishito you'll tend to see on appetizers in restaurants, where they have olive oil and salt, and they'll tend to put soy sauce with it if it's in an Asian restaurant, and you just eat the whole thing, seeds and all. Yeah. Well, 1 in 10 is, one's got a little bite to it. So I've followed those, but Padron is really the best, and they're out of Spain, Padron, Spain. So I bought, 90 plants. I put them in the ground this year, and of course, not thinking I plant them, I'm going, what did I have so many peppers for? I had a big harvest. So I had these tubs of all these peppers, and they were hotter than they're supposed to be. So these will be in my garden next year.
I will follow up and see how
you follow up. I will probably, how often do you get back?
I've been coming back. In the last 2 years, I've been back 8 times.
So when you're back next summer, track me down, and I'll bring some in, and we can see if Gary was able to grow them or if he killed them.
Great. But you can try the outside to see if you like them.
I will.
Like dry pepper flakes.
I do all kinds of things with pepper. In fact, there's a chili poster you can get. Mark Miller, who's one of the guys I know well out of New Mexico, he's a famous chef. He has a poster. If you order peppers with all these chili samples around the world, Mark Miller's, that's his poster. He's an expert.
Okay, next time I'm going to bring you even more seeds. And here's another flavor of Guatemala. So I have some bees where I live in my house. And this is infused with the herb tulsi and some lime. So
Tulsi, what's Tulsi?
Tulsi is holy basil, so it's a member of the basil family.
Yeah.
And it's very good for like respiratory illness. It's good for the immune system, and people also take it like St. John's wort as an antidepressant.
Wow.
Not that you don't look like
Yeah.
a depressed guy,
No,
but you
I
might
should be
just
once,
even get even
but
happier.
once a year, I'm a little, I feel a little bit down once a year. My wife goes, what's wrong? What's going on in our life? I go, I don't know. I just don't feel great right now. And she goes, get over it.
Well, eat the honey next time.
Yeah. So the Tulsi, so what does that look like, the herb?
It looks
It's
like
a
basil. Yeah, it just looks like basil.
I
It's,
love
it's a
basil.
cousin of basil.
So I grow a lot of basil. I get Thai basil. I like a
Great.
little heat from that, a little different. Is it like that, or I never
It's a
heard?
little sweeter.
little
It's kind
sweeter?
of got a little, I call it cotton candy
Do
flavor.
you have any seeds for those? Next time you come
Next
back,
time,
bring me
right?
some Tulsi.
Yeah, you're gonna
basil
have to,
seeds.
you're gonna have to come to my garden down there.
Maybe-
'Cause here's the advantage of gardening in Central America: nothing dies.
Wow.
So like you plant bananas, and then a year later you have 10 banana plants. This was hard to leave Guatemala because I had 12 crates of avocados from my avocado trees. Avocados are free for me in Guatemala. And then I knew I was coming to the land where avocados start at $1 minimum.
Yeah, I'm an avocado fan. I just love avocados.
I would love to
they're
bring them,
important
but
to
they're
diet.
going to kick me
Yeah,
off the
they're-
plane and take me
yeah.
to the back room.
Yeah, I had a
Whatever,
friend
dude.
in California I worked with, Thousand Oaks area, and he had an avocado tree. I put some in my suitcase, and I got back to Bismarck, and they were gone. And they had a little sticker in my bag. Hey, you can't take these out of. So I learned a lesson. So I get all that. So I don't want to lose track on Gary's gardening and all that stuff, but talk to us a little bit about the Guatemalan people. Talk to us about your involvement. We got a slide deck I'd like to walk through here real quick for you to take a look at. So let's take a look at it, and you can talk to us a little bit about, for the viewers to understand a little bit what's going on here.
So that's me at the center. When I'm not fundraising, I get the opportunity to teach writing, music at the school. They're about to do a piñata here, so they're very excited. The ones in the yellow shirts, the ones on the left are Mick and Deborah, our founders. The ones on the right are former students who are now teachers of our center. So that's very beautiful for us that the kids, some of them have grown up, and if they wanted to go into teaching, we give them opportunities in our educational center. They get fed there when they come, they get lunch, and then they get a snack when they go. And if they have 80% higher of attendance, their family gets a $75 value food basket every month. And that prevents the parents from sending their kids into coffee fields for $1 or $2 a day, and keeps them in school. And that makes the kids' studies a breadwinning activity for the family, because oftentimes parents that are caught in generational poverty, they're not thinking, oh, in 10 years, if my child gets an education, he'll have opportunities. They're thinking, what am I going to eat today? What am I going to eat tomorrow? And so they're not thinking in this long-term mindset that we need to lead the kids into in order to break them out of generational poverty.
Talk to us about this Eternal Heart and what you're involved with and what it does and the founders of it. Give us some background on that.
So one of the things that is beautiful for me to witness is it's one of the flowers in the ashes of 9/11. So Mick, our founder, he spent 20 years working in Tower One. He was the CEO of a head hunting company. And because he was the boss, he said he always showed up between 10 and 11. So he lost his company, he lost his coworkers. He moved to Europe where he met his wife. He read a book, or wrote a book called The Uncommon Path there. And then him and Deborah were simply coming down for a few weeks of vacation in Guatemala. And when they saw, Mick tells the story of having rented a car. He got out of the tourist trap where everything, looks good and beautiful. And they got to this dusty road in a small village. And he said he saw just barefoot children sitting out in a dusty road. And it just broke his heart because he thought, where is this potential going to go? And that led them to move to Guatemala and to start the Integral Heart Family, which currently today is offering opportunities for 75 kids to go to school instead of being sent to the fields or worse. 9/11 was a tragedy. I remember I was in 10th grade Spanish class at St. Mary's High School when the TVs came on and we were all watching that. But it's beautiful to know that somehow from the ashes of that, this flower that we know of and perhaps many others have bloomed and are really saving people's lives from destitution, transforming lives. And my heroes are the kids themselves because we provide the opportunities. We're 100% crowdfunded. So we're also a story of what those of us with a little bit of means. It costs $55 a month to support one of our kids in the program, and then $75 a month. Our 75 kids come from 40 families to put that food basket on the table. And they're doing the heroic work of dedicating themselves to studies, having dreams, and then reaching their dreams from the resources provided from the integral heart, which comes from kind hearts choosing to donate to our cause.
Luke, just the idea of those founders, New York City, living that lifestyle, and headhunters. When you're in business or you're entrepreneur in Dunstan, you get these headhunter calls. And so those are sharks. They're people, for that couple to decide. Now, obviously you met her after 9/11 in Europe, you said, and they end up in Guatemala. How long have they been there?
They've been down there 15 years now.
Do they still live there?
Yeah, they live in Guatemala.
So they've given up all of that to go to Guatemala to help 75 kids. And those kids that are, you say 75, are they in this program continual, or are they in for a year and you bring in another round of 75 kids? Or walk us through that a little bit.
So yeah, we stay with the kids until high school. And I've seen kids graduates. If your car breaks down in Antigua, Guatemala, you can call a mechanic van and he'll show up with his tools in his van and fix your car. He's a graduate of our program. We paid for his mechanical trade school. If anyone wants to learn Spanish, there's a guy who's a graduate of our program who founded a small business. He's a great entrepreneur, and he teaches one-on-one language to individuals, to homeschool families in the U.S. He offers the first class free, and he makes his living that way. He wouldn't have even got through the first grade without the integral heart. I joke, because I couldn't imagine sitting in a cubicle doing accounting all day. So I say the kid that we didn't help is an accountant in a big accounting firm in Guatemala City. But he has a 4-year degree.
Wow.
He came through the integral heart. We have teachers, we have a policeman, we have a fireman that have come through our program. And I've lived down there 18 years. So I don't focus on the stories of the kids that didn't make it, the kids that dropped out of school after a year despite the opportunities. But some of them get trafficked, some of them end up in gangs, some of them end up in the worst sort of situations we can imagine for our kids. Having been down there so long, having been with this program, knowing the founders since the beginning, I've seen the other side. I've seen that very difficult thing to do, getting out of generational poverty. It's a misconception that generational poverty is due to laziness, because whole families get caught in it. And it's like lobsters in a trap. One tries to get ahead, but as soon as there's money to go around, it just gets spread out. And that's also a security blanket, because families in generational poverty, everything gets shared, but nothing, they take no steps ahead of it. I've known many families, they live out of garbage cans to what people are throwing away. I've known children whose mom has rented them for $1 a day to scavenge bottles and cans from a garbage dump, who find their clothes and food in those garbage dumps. So having witnessed that firsthand, there's nothing I would rather do with my time than to really build these bridges between our cultures and other cultures. And in one of my travels to India, I was at the Dalai Lama's temple in India. And he said something that really stuck with me. This was 4 years into this work. He said, it's when we don't have someone to care for and serve that we sink deepest into our misery. So that really connected with me. We're not just helping the kids in Guatemala. We're bringing meaning into the lives of those that choose to support it. So I know it's fundraising season, all the churches, charities, and organizations. And if you feel called to help our organization, please help us. But please just help someone, whether that's holding a door open for someone, whether you see someone walking in the cold who looks safe to pick up and offering them a ride. As St. Francis said, I'm always preaching the gospel, and sometimes I use words. So
Wow.
We need to live lives in accordance with what is going to give us the most meaning.
Wow, that's fabulous. So said. We're going to go to the break, and we come back. I want to dig in a little bit further of how to support your not ministry, but your work that you're doing. So Luke, that soliloquy that you gave just before, I didn't want to interrupt that, because your heart for the need for people, of helping people, is so, God bless you for that. And I know your mother, I see it in your mother, and I see that by the things she's written are very much in line with that. But you're an author as well, and I want to talk a little bit about that so people are familiar with it. You also talk about, on Spotify, you do music. I saw a guitar on one of those pictures we went through. So let's talk a little bit about some of the writing you've done.
Yeah, so I've published over 12 books. My most recent project was my first translation project, which I actually used AI to take original source material, put it into sloppy English, and then turn it into poetic English. So that's the famous poet Rumi. I've also written a novel which takes place in Guatemala called How One Guitar Will Save the World. I have The Nomad's Nomad, which is tales of my wild travel days on the road, writing and living out of a backpack. Those are fun times. I spent about 3 years on the road working as a travel writer. And then I have a deep love of poetry. One of my majors is English, so I guess I put that to work, and I put about 10 books of poetry out into the world.
Wow, that's fantastic. So do you self-publish those then on Amazon?
Yep, most of my books are self-published.
That's what my wife's done. She's written a number of books, and we got your place on Amazon here. These are so many books. Let's just talk about them real quickly. If you just want to give us a synopsis of them real quick so the viewers out there can go to Amazon and order it.
Yeah, so the yellow one is probably the most entertaining. I got mauled by a raccoon in that book.
Second from the left?
Yep. So that's the one where I have stories of my travels to over 50 countries. One was an interesting situation where I got viciously attacked by a raccoon. I was in a remote area in Guatemala, and I called my dad, Mark Armstrong, who some of the viewers know, on the phone, and I was like, hey, Dad, can you Google how long after a raccoon attack you need to get the rabies vax? And then the signal went out. So he gets this call from me and then cuts out. And he's, what is going on?
Oh, my
goodness. What is happening to Luke?
Did you have to get the rabies shot then?
I got it in hour 48. Because the first health post I went to, they didn't have it. And it was just a precautionary thing. But you gotta get it.
I hate to have cats on our little ranchette, if you will, without rabies shots, because they're playing my grandkids or the cat jumps up. And I heard they're not good. You don't want rabies shots. I heard.
And you don't want rabies, though.
Yeah, and you don't want rabies for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your ministry further, or not ministry, I call it a ministry because I think a God's Child Project, but the work that you guys do. Let's once again, I want to know how people can give, because it's the season of the year where people give. How the towers for veterans, I don't remember what, I can't remember, now my mind's blank, but it's $11 a month to help veterans. They've raised so much money to help veterans and law enforcement, firemen, stuff like that. But in your case, you threw out some scenario like $40 a month can get. Talk to us a little bit about that, so how someone can just participate in a child's life and how they can give in that regard a little bit. So we want to go to that website and figure out how people can give.
Yeah, the most sustainable way is to sign up for what feels appropriate for a person. We can accept as low as $1 a month. Some of our largest donors are only $200 a month. And then the new school term starts in January, which is why towards the end of the year, we're currently in a drive to raise $40,000. We've raised $26,000. I've traveled to New York, I've traveled to Montana, Colorado, but I come more and more often to North Dakota because even though we're a small state, we're a state of big hearts, and the most help we've gotten as an organization has been from North Dakota.
Jerry, I remember many years ago, Jerry Falwell, who did the Moral Majority, who was a Baptist from Virginia. His biggest contributions were from Catholics from the Midwest who gave to the cause. And they never disclosed that for many years, but it was because they were right to life, they were pro-family, pro-life. But North Dakotans are very generous people. They are, and they're hardworking, industrious, and many of them feel blessed, as you've talked about.
I grew up with this value, give until it hurts a little bit. And money, we don't want to be ruled by money. We want to see money as a means to help us do what we want to do in life. And some people just have so little means, they're never able to do anything they want in life. So our 3 pillars are nutrition, education, and stability. If you're starving, you're not going to be able to get a good education. If you feel unsafe, you're not going to be able to get a good education. So the director of our school is a Guatemalan woman who lives in an apartment in our education center. That makes it a family. That's why we changed our name several years ago from the Integral Heart Foundation to the Integral Heart Family, because we provide that one stable person. Even if you come from a dysfunctional family, early childhood development studies show that if you have one trustworthy person in your life, one person who does what they say they're going to do, who you can rely on, you can learn to build trust. And building trust is first and foremost important to trust yourself, to trust that if you have a dream, you can take the steps to reach it, rather than simply getting by, eating out of garbage cans, collecting shirts for something to wear from a garbage dump. So that's what we're in the business of doing, is leading kids out of generational poverty. And I have seen kids from our program lift up their family members. There's a young woman I met many years ago in a garbage dump, Carmen, who graduated from the Integral Heart. She has put her half-brother through high school. He's in his last year of high school. She has put her 2 nieces who were born from a very dysfunctional sister of hers into school. One is in the 5th grade now, the other is just entering the 2nd grade this year. So I've seen that if you break one person out of generational poverty, and it's a long journey, you're not going to do it in a day, you're not going to do it in a month, but over the years of support, it does happen, and they tend to lift those who are ready in their family out of similar situations.
So when you take the fact that you're helping 75 children, that becomes a multiplying effect, obviously generational potentially, but you're talking, what do you say, 14, 16 million people in Guatemala. Is South America, Central America, can they overcome that lifestyle that is so impoverished in so many ways, even though they're happy people?
Definitely. I've seen it happen. I've seen them find the ways to thrive, really, rather than just mere survival.
So I think what's fascinating is that people like yourself feel called to go do this. And we've had Pat Atkinson on. I need to have him back. But it's got to be difficult when you come from America and North Dakota, wherever you come in America, to just see the need so great and not to just get burnt out. That's got to be a challenge, because Pat Atkinson talks a little bit about trying to help people with the need being so intense.
Yeah, I've coined the term, when failure is not an option, success is inevitable. In our current fundraising drive, I don't know where we're going to raise this other $14,000 from that we need, but I know I'm not going to quit until we get there. My parents met in the Peace Corps, so I've always had this value instilled in me of giving back. And when I was like 20, I think you're going to save the world. And as I've grown, I'm 40 now, so I'm officially the youngest man in the old man club. I've seen that what we can do, we can't do everything, but we can do something with everything that we've got. So this is my little corner of the world I'm cultivating, and I just recommend to everyone they have that little corner of their world where they're making a difference. And you don't worry about all the things that you can't do. You can go through the news and it will feel like the world's in a difficult place, but when I actually look around me, like, I just see wonderful people doing what they can whenever they can. And sometimes we don't know that we can make a big difference, but we always can, whether it's a smile, whether it's a kind word, whether it's reaching out to someone in your family over the holidays who might be alone, whether it's going to nursing homes and making sure that our elders are cared for, not just left in a corner of a hospital. So the invitation is, this is where you'll find your most authentic joy in life, is if you do things that mean something to you, because the meaning of life is to give life meaning. And when the meaning is only me, that's the path to misery. Truly it is.
I'd like to have our back bring up one more chance to give, because it's the time of year. If you can just put it in your credit card, skip one Starbucks drink a month, think about Guatemala coffee, and think about the ability of giving $10 a month or $20 a month. This isn't a telethon, but when you got somebody who's doing this kind of thing, so if they just go to Integral Heart Family, top right, click
Integral
on it.
Heart Foundation.
Can I put a credit card? Can I put a credit card on? Say $10 a month out of my account. We got it up and give. And if we could just help you get to that $40,000 number, it'd be great if the Open Range family could help contribute to that. So I'm gonna go there before the day's out and contribute my part. So
thank you.
Luke, thank you for coming on Open Range. I appreciate having you. When you're back again, come on back, and I can't wait to plant my seeds in the spring.
I can't wait to see the hot sauce you make from it.
That'd be awesome. So that's great. I get some really great recipes. I get some really great chefs. So Luke, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Gary.
So stay tuned. We're going to be thanks Luke Armstrong for joining us.